Hi, I'm Alan Ross. I'm the managing editor of APC Media. This is DISTRIBUTECH International 2024, interviews with thought leaders. Enjoy. My next guest is Casey Werth. I'm going to throw a lot of hooks at you. You are the general manager of
the energy sector at IBM.
The GM of the energy sector at IBM.
Yes.
I have no idea what that means, but there's something that about you that it said. Okay, I got to read this.
Okay, sure.
You're going to better leverage technology and differentiated capabilities. What the heck does that mean?
So it's great. It's a lot of some MBA jargon there. But basically, when we think about what the IBM portfolio and what we try to engage clients on is fundamentally solve industry problems or challenges or opportunities, achieve opportunities with technology as an enabler.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, I mean, when I think about now with AI and the new advanced capabilities required, it really is a triangle of people, process, and technology. Okay. So we bring a great portfolio of technology, a great team that has services, but in the end, we need to work with our clients and industry partners on all three to really drive change in this industry.
5 years ago, I didn't see IBM at conferences like this, right? We began to talk about it in the industry. We began to talk about data, the first words of AI and ML, and suddenly you started to hear it. But the industry was very closed as an industry. Yep. And now we have to have interoperability. You have so much going on in the industry.
Yes.
You've got to, as a student of the industry and somebody that's got a specific role, where do you think the industry, the utility industry is going? Because from a lot of people's perceptions, it's like a hockey stick.
Yeah.
It's growing rapidly.
Yes.
There's so much change going on that it's now time when we look at people like you to come in and help us make sense of it all. Where do you think the power industry is going?
So, big question. I'll try not to have too big of an answer.
No, be having a big answer. Okay, we're big people.
You know, it's an interesting question about interoperability within discrete organizations, but also within the industry writ large.
Right.
And I think what we're seeing now is we've been talking about the IT-OT integration for so long.
Right.
But advanced technologies like AI, as an example, are really driving a new discussion within organizations even of what could we do if we had guardrails to start to bring data together differently than we have in the past to really start to change operational processes. And then we think about the industry writ large, to your point, the huge task of decarbonizing our grid and supporting electrification of all industries will require a very different thought process around how we generate, how we share capacity, and how we plan differentiated planning across regions than we have in the past, I think. And things like the storm in Texas and other discrete examples of what it could be in larger scale if we don't have a better perspective of that. And of course, when we move to variability on both sides of the equation, we need more and more tools in our disposal to help balance when we start to have more and more variability on the generation side. So where's the industry going? I think it's first within organizations, a better appreciation of what historical data we've had that we maybe not have had the tools to necessarily leverage to change processes. And then as we look at those processes discretely within a utility, how do we start to propagate across regions so that we can really start to move the needle on big things we need to solve for the industry?
So one of the things you just hit upon it, and it's the buzzwords in the industry used to be reliability and safety.
Yeah.
I actually retired as the president of the Electric Power Reliability Alliance.
There you go.
I felt like I invented it 20 years ago. Nobody was talking about reliability.
Well, reliability is just resilience now. That's the new
version.
See,
that's what's happening.
So you should have trademarked that one.
I know. Reliability was keep the lights on.
Yep.
Resilience is, oh my God, put them back on. We've had a power failure.
Exactly.
We've had an event. We were at TechCon 2 weeks ago, and I did a panel with experts from Idaho Power, SMUD from the Sacramento area, and PG&E. And we talked about physical security.
Yeah.
I was shocked at what they shared.
Really?
How there are people who are banding together to try to figure out how to take out substations, right? 7 of them in North Carolina. SMUD had a big one. Idaho and the Hells Rim. So you got that. You've got cybersecurity, which has been around for a while now, but nobody understands it other than the cyber. And you've got extreme weather events, those that happen like this, and heat, which is that permeating event. those are all the things that are attacking the utilities.
Yep.
I think that's why they're open up to say, help us solve these problems.
Yes.
So how does, I would read it again I try to remember it. Differentiated technology and capabilities. Talk about that.
So I love this topic because within the IBM portfolio, we have several products that are within that asset lifecycle. Let's just start with assets because fundamentally, the assets, either physical or technology based, are the enablers of how we deliver, cheap, reliable.
Transformers being one of them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yes,
that's right.
But when we talk about resilience, it's really about the planning and then how you respond. Okay. And so we like to think about the cycles of long-term planning and risk mitigation and understanding what potential risks they are and how do we start to develop a plan. It's not dissimilar to how NERC brings from a cybersecurity perspective. These are the standards which outline our expectations for you to anticipate a risk and then build a program around it. Right. Similarly, around the enterprise asset program, we can look at things like demographic changes to anticipate where will a transformer have issues going down the line if I have too many changes within the load off the back of it, or if we look at feeders, et cetera. Also, of course, with now weather events, how do I start to anticipate longer ahead how I would potentially respond, and then even in an event, prepare faster and be able to prepare either inventory or crews, otherwise anticipating where the impact will be in discrete sections of the grid. So I think that resilience, and then if we pull back even bigger, resilience now has become not just discrete weather or bad actors with rifles or others trying to attack substations. It's energy security at a nation level. Yeah, and so that's where the energy transition even becomes more critical, because domestic production and not having reliance on imported fuel is now obviously a very big topic at the UN level even, right? And others, and certainly NATO is. So I think that buzzword, if we call it that, of resiliency, is here to stay, because we've had examples with the storms in Texas, or now unfortunately Florida gets hit several times a year seemingly with hurricanes, that we know kind of what the impact will be and need to build a mitigation plan around it, or at least prepare as best we can. But as we pull back to your question earlier about what are the big things we need to do, driving renewables and that orchestration thereof is an important thing for every country now to understand energy security and resilience. So that term now, reliability, yes, it's still reliability of the system, because we need to reliably deliver what the system is expected of, but the expectations are rising everywhere. So it's a bigger job than ever was.
We had, in that event that we went to, we discussed with Luma Energy, they're the people that took over the power system in Puerto Rico. I was going to say the power problems in Puerto Rico. but there's one, it got hit by a hurricane, then it got hit by another hurricane, then it had an earthquake. So when you talk about kind of prepare for these things, how in the world do you prepare for that? How do you mitigate for those? Because they're still trying to figure it out.
That's a black swan. Fundamentally.
We're going to call that the black swan.
Yeah, I think, no, but truly the way that triple whammy, basically, when the physical infrastructure is decimated at that capacity, there's really limited things. But I was with some members of the ARPA-E group and DOE a couple weeks ago, and then we were talking about this whole idea of long-term storage and then movable storage. And could we, because already, in the cloud world, we started building data centers in 40-foot containers and sinking them into the oceans because it's cheap cooling or free cooling, right? Why can't we think about the same in terms of, yes, we can already do long-term storage, but what if we could put them on trains or even trucks and move large, long-term storage to be able to be accessible in those moments of really devastating impact? Now, I know there are certain cities, I know Houston is an example, is quite open, and they're looking at this now, how they as a city can start to build those mitigation options for themselves. But I think that there's certainly lots of smarter people than myself at the labs looking at this right now and saying, where are we in the maturity curve of technology that could give us new tools to help with something like that? And I think storage is one, and then of course, back to the earlier point, connectivity and resiliency through connectivity to grids. Okay. I mean, we all know when the conflict in Ukraine happened, how quickly we need, Europe banded together to bring that grid into synchronization so that they could connect to the rest of Europe. Similarly, when we think about devastating weather events, greater connectivity on offshore would of course give that resiliency that they currently don't have.
Yeah, brilliant. You hit on an area I love, storage, right? Sure. Because there's a lot of change. There was an RE Plus conference back in September. In 2022, that conference had 800 vendors.
I heard it was huge this year.
15,000 people.
Yeah.
Last year, 40,000 people. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And the golden star of it all was storage.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. Big companies now in the storage area. Grid scale storage seems to be one of the big answers for resiliency, for redundancy, for a lot of different things, right? Including in data centers. Yep. Grid scale storage is going to take a different technology because you just can't stack a bunch of small batteries. Yeah, right. Yeah. Lithium-ion batteries.
Get a bunch of iPhones and
yes, exactly right. So, what do you see in the storage area, just from your perspective?
Yeah. So, and I am not. This is not an area that I have spent a lot of time in, but I'll give you an example of one. So I was at the Next Era Energy Transition Conference last year.
Now that you've been there, you can talk about storage.
It was a fascinating discussion over, of course, drinks and the dinners and things, because there's different opinions of this. And I think that the storage topic right now is being intermingled a bit with hydrogen. And new interest in hydrogen, not new interest, but this real push in terms of where are we going to build, how do we site, and then once we have generated hydrogen and or ammonia or other products, what do we do with it? Is it a battery? Is it a fuel source? Is it a battery then a fuel source? Or et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of discussion was around what makes more sense if we know that the wind corridor is in the middle of the country and we want to build a significant footprint of onshore turbines in the Dakotas and maybe down in Nebraska, and obviously we already know what Texas has built in terms of infrastructure. Right. But we know that the majority of our consumption is at the coasts. Does it make more sense to try to go through the 10 years of building transmission or re-rating existing transmission, which I know there's a big focus on, and then DLR and other technologies can help support that? Yeah. Or do we generate a bunch of hydrogen, leverage existing or retrofit pipes, get it to the coast, and then either use it as a fuel source or other alternative uses like ammonia? And I don't think anyone has an answer for this because it's a nascent area, but I will say that that's the big, how do we solve it at a very large level. I think in a more discrete level, I think most utilities I'm speaking with now are saying, I haven't really considered large-scale storage, in my IRP or long-term planning, and the demographics around where I need to be putting it is critical to me right now. Right. Because they are large investments, they aren't movable, we can't put them now in 40-foot containers, but I need to understand where from my available interconnects or where I need power to be sited because of my demographic changes. That's a huge question because there's regret cost. And so on a technology, I know that we're speeding forward with new technologies to do longer storage and longer time duration. But I think fundamentally right now, even with what's available, utilities are trying to figure out first, what am I going to be storing and where should I put it so that I know that I will serve the future need.
You get a sense, the utility industry is notoriously, historically, very closed, right?
Yeah.
Our stuff, we're not allowed to talk to you, we won't share anything.
Sure.
Suddenly, with all the problems that we've got, they're going, help us. And people like IBM, you see Microsoft here, sure. Dell is here. There's a lot now, much more openness to, we don't know what the future looks like. Help us describe the future and for us to use it in our long-term planning and us to begin to make the right decisions. You mentioned hydrogen. Yeah. There's an old joke that says hydrogen is the future and it always will be. Okay. Yeah. And so we've been waiting for hydrogen. Yeah. I'm involved with a hydrogen company. I know it very well.
Sure.
Because the investors are waiting for it to come. Yeah. But the utilities really seem to open up to solutions that people like you, IBM, bring to them. That they've typically just said, okay, sell us what you've got, we'll see if it fits. Is that a true case? And do you find that they're much more open-armed about sharing their data and sharing the problems than they have been?
Yes, I think that there is more a...
You're thinking about this.
Well, no, because it starts with software and it starts with a move from, like every time I speak with leaders within physics always is brought up when we talk about the industry, right?
Okay.
But software is becoming more and more a critical piece of what is actually running the systems that deliver our services. And that is a change from the power engineers and the EE folks really owning the critical assets, et cetera. And so software from vendors like ourselves and others are becoming more important than that. At IBM, we have Maximo, which is a really important asset management tool. But we're trying to introduce the broader portfolio to our utility clients through that very established quality relationship we have with some money, which is your core asset from a physical as well as financial consideration is your asset portfolio. But we have tools that help you with automation of processes. We have tools that help with data governance, security, et cetera. And if we start from there and then we can build a relationship and a story around it that as you move through an organization, it's like, oh yes, of course, and you do that too. Oh, well, that would help me, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. As opposed to coming and sort of, and parachuting in with saying, hey, let's move everything to cloud and let's go nuts. That's sort of been our approach. And I think that now the AI discussions are driving a very different perception there. Of what can I be doing more? What should I anticipate I will need to do more? And how do I prepare now for it?
I think in the back of the minds, the real question is, I'm supposed to do something with AI. I don't know what it is. Help
do
me
you have an idea? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
Last question.
Sure.
Digitalization it's decentralization, digitalization, and what's the other? Decarbonization. Yeah, that's right.
And democratization.
And democratization.
Don't worry, I always had to drill myself.
Let's talk about the digitalization aspect of that. What does that really mean, and where are we going with it?
I think digital, again, back to software becoming more and more an important part of what we do within the IT and OT footprints. And now looking at this idea of platformizing, if you will, to make up a word, across a lot of these vertical processes. And so what drives that is data you can trust, access to it, and then the ability to share it across what were vertical silos. As an example,
I love that.
We've always had, we know that AMI 1.0 was driven predominantly by meter to cache. It was in the keynote today, right? But now if we can integrate discrete AMI data into the outage management system, of course the ADMS needs to have visibility to it, et cetera, and start to gain from that edge data in systems that didn't used to be viewed in, that's digitization. Yes, and it's really driving that idea of moving from the silos to creating visibility across and then asking questions of that new capability and saying, what if I could, in an outage, go and look at discrete households to understand, it's just that feed or not that other one. We oftentimes couldn't do that. That requires that digital layer to be able to share the data, put it together, and drive an outcome.
Best description I've ever heard, Casey. Really? That's brilliant. Thank you so much. This has been a brilliant one. We will do this again, but thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. Cheers.